Every single day it is getting harder and harder for Russian forces to advance. In addition to that, Ukraine launches massive counterattacks against Russian territories. Is this the turning point in this war? Will Ukraine finally succeed in its fight against Russia? Will Putin get desperate and attempt something stupid? And these are the questions that we'll be talking about in my today's video. What's up, investors and people of Reddit, it's the Russian Dude, and this is your daily update on Russian-Ukrainian war as of Wednesday, April 27th. You can see the main events of the day to my right, along with the timestamps. Today, several Russian territories have been attacked by Ukrainians. And in this very picture we can see, for example, the fire which happened at the ammunition warehouse in Belgorod region. For those of you who might not know, Belgorod is basically a Russian city which is at the very top of Kharkov, which is obviously in Ukraine. Besides Belgorod, two other territories inside Russia were also attacked, and one of them was the region of Voronezh, where anti-aircraft defense system hit the drone. And another territory was the region of Kursk, where something dangerously close to thermal power station was on fire. In response to that, Mikhailo Podolyak, who is once again the member of Ukrainian negotiations team, said that Russia now also finally understands what demilitarization means. He said that if Russia was bombing our cities, killing our soldiers, killing our civilians, what else they can expect? He said that basically this was the appropriate military response during war times. So it all basically means that this is definitely not the first and not the last Ukrainian attempt to attack the territory of Russia. In addition to that, Alexei Arestovich, who is the advisor to the president of Ukraine, previously said that as soon as Ukraine starts receiving offensive weapons, this is when Ukrainian forces can start launching counterattacks against Russia. And since we all can see that it is getting extremely hard for Russian forces to advance every single kilometer at this very moment, it definitely now starts making sense that Ukraine will be now in offensive mode. Ukraine was first able to resist major attacks of Russia, then it was able to start retaking some of its territories, and the next step is to push away Russian forces from its own territory and even launch counterattacks against the territory of Russia, which is basically exactly what we see right now is happening. And here we have the statements of the defense minister of Donetsk, Igor Girkin, when he was asked why the offensive of Russia is getting so slow in Ukraine. The first thing he mentioned is that because Russians are moving so slow, Ukraine is able to occupy and fortify existing territories, which obviously makes further advancement even harder. And several main reasons, according to him, why this advancement is so slow, it is because there is not enough air support, not enough modern equipment, not enough soldiers in Russian forces, and those who are fighting right now in Ukraine, their training is simply not sufficient. And by the way, if you like this style of daily news reporting, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, please check the link in the description if you want to support Ukraine with us. I will be donating all of my Patreon memberships at the end of the month to Ukraine, and I'll do it during my charitable livestream, which will happen this Saturday, April 30th. In this picture you can see a woman and her son who have lost father in this war in Ukraine, and in order to compensate the death of this person, Russia gave them 10,000 rubles, which is approximately $130. In addition to that, they gave them a pair of new military boots because his older brother is basically still in Ukraine, which in my opinion is kinda unfortunate and ironic. A couple of days ago, the Secretary of the State Antony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin have met with the President of Ukraine Vladimir Zelensky. They were mainly obviously talking about the situation in Ukraine and how Western countries, including especially United States of America, can help Ukraine battle against Russia. I did a quick summary about the main statements that were said during this meeting in my previous video, but a couple of new statements were said today, which I'm gonna highlight to you right now. First of all, Lloyd Austin said that the probability of nuclear war, which was announced yesterday by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, are very slim. He basically says that Russia is simply bluffing. And he also added that such statements by such higher government official of Russia are completely unacceptable and dangerous. The next thing Lloyd Austin mentioned is that at this very moment, the application of Ukraine into NATO is not being considered. But I would say that at this very moment, this must not be a news to anyone, especially Ukraine, because even President Zelensky himself already acknowledged the fact that unfortunately they will not be able to join the alliance. In this map presented to us by the Ministry of Defense of the United Kingdom, we can see the current condition of this so-called military operation. As you can see, the main combats are focused in the east of the country and south of the country. The main goal of Russia still remains the same, which is to surround and liberate the Donbas region, which consists of Luhansk and Donetsk. But a couple of days ago, a new objective was added to the second stage of the war, which is also to liberate, I guess, the south of Ukraine. And this is why we can see some combats happening, for example, in the city of Odessa. But to be honest, since Russia recently lost its navy flagship called Moskva, it will be much harder to occupy the south of the country. Because one of the main responsibilities of this ship was to provide significant support for paratroopers, which were supposed to land in the south of Ukraine. But a couple of days ago, combat actions also started happening in Pridnestrovye region, which is in between Moldova and Ukraine. What happened basically is that there was several explosions in this Pridnestrovye region. And for those of you who might not know, this Pridnestrovye separated from Moldova in 1990s. The reason for separation was because Moldova did not want Russian language to be the official language of that region. So for this reason, Pridnestrovye, which had a decent amount of Russian speakers, said that we don't want to live in this country, we want to be independent. And just like it always happens, the independence of Pridnestrovye at this very moment is basically not recognized by anyone. So these explosions in Pridnestrovye basically happened, and obviously Russia started blaming Ukraine. They said that once again Ukrainian Nazis were attacking Russian speakers and they were assisting Moldova to return this Pridnestrovye region back to its full territory. And recently the Vice President of Ukraine, Alexei Arestovich, made this statement. He basically said that in case Moldova asks Ukraine to help take the control over Pridnestrovye region, Ukraine will have enough forces to make this happen. In response to that, the press secretary of Russia, basically the mouth of Putin, said that the words said by Alexei Arestovich are very provocative. Which basically means, I guess in his understanding, Russia will now need to liberate Moldova as well. As of today, Russia will stop sending gas to Poland and Bulgaria. And the reason for this is because these two countries declined to pay for Russian gas with Russian rubles. According to them, along with basically most of European countries, paying for gas with Russian currency breaches the terms of the contracts. For which Russia responded, if you are not going to pay for Russian gas with Russian rubles, we're simply gonna stop sending it to you. And so basically Bulgaria and Poland were the very first two countries which were refused Russian gas because they didn't want to pay on their terms. In addition to that, Finland also announced that they are not planning to buy Russian gas for the Russian currency. And all of this created the response of the President of European Parliament, Roberta Metsola, is that all the targeted countries, including Poland and Bulgaria, will not be left without European Union support. She says that the European Union will not be blackmailed by Putin and that all the European countries must look for alternatives how they can replace Russian energy sources. And by the way, this very picture that you see on your screen right now, you can see the dependency of European countries on Russian gas. And so, since we're speaking about Finland, Poland and Bulgaria, the dependency of these countries on Russian gas is the following. Finland's dependency on Russian gas is at 94%, Bulgarian dependency on Russian gas is at 77%, and Polish dependency on Russian gas is at 40%. Which basically means that yes, probably at the very beginning it will be extremely complicated for these countries to get rid of Russian energy sources, but basically they have no other choice to do. Today, Vladimir Putin has met with the Federal Assembly of Russian Federation, and these are the main statements that he made. The first thing he said is that in case Russia continues to receive threats, the response will be immediate. Second, he said that all the military objectives, especially in Donbas region, eventually will be accomplished by Russia. And I mean, I guess this is just once again a confirmation that at this very moment Putin does not receive all the truthful information. Because I guess we can all agree that Ukraine is demonstrating significant resistance towards Russian forces. And besides Ukraine successfully defending all the attacks against its territory, now recently it started to counterattack Russia. The third thing Putin mentioned is that one of the reasons why all of this is happening right now in the world, it is because Western countries do not need big and strong Russia. And then he was thanking Russian soldiers and officers because they were able to prevent worldwide catastrophe. And then he was speaking about the economy of Russia, specifically that sanctions were hard, but Russian economy was able to resist all of them. And that Russia eventually will respond to all these economic and financial sanctions imposed by Western countries. And I guess what he meant here is that now, since there is no international cars, such for example Mercedes and BMW in Russia, Russia will stop exporting Ladas. Putin concluded by saying that Russia has many international friends who will be supporting Russia in this conflict. And first countries that immediately came to my mind after he said this is that these countries' supporters are basically North Korea, Afghanistan, Syria and Belarus. I personally have nothing against these countries, but basically these are just our allies from now on. And finally, Putin said that Russia will be protecting its journalists and freedom of speech because basically that's how the truth gets to the people. And what he meant by that is this recent assassination attempt against Russian propagandist Vladimir Solovyov. The G20 Summit will happen November 15th this year, and the country recipient of this summit is Indonesia, and they invited Ukraine to this summit as well, which might eventually turn out to be one of the most important summits of all time because Russia will also be present there. If there are no concrete agreements made before that time, probably this is going to be one of the first attempts at meeting President Zelensky and President Putin face to face. Because according to Mikhailo Podolyak, who is the member of Ukrainian negotiations team, at this very moment there is nothing significant what presidents can discuss. And even though the leaders are still not yet talking, the negotiations team of Russia and Ukraine are constantly in talks between each other and are trying to find some mutual agreements. And later these agreements can be presented to both presidents and finally maybe they can meet. Which is also supported by the willingness of Turkey to host these negotiations between the leaders of two countries. Specifically, the president of Turkey, Recep Erdogan, who spoke personally with President Zelensky and President Putin, he says that both presidents are welcome in the country so that they can finally speak. The General Secretary of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, says that Vladimir Putin finally agreed that the United Nations and Red Cross can assist civilians from Mariupol to escape. There have been several reports saying that Luhansk and Donetsk will do a referendum about joining Russia somewhere around May 14th, May 15th. Referendum in this case means that simple residents will be asked, do you want to be a part of Russia? And I guess in ideal world this is exactly how would this happen, but I don't think we are living in an ideal world, to be honest. What I mean by that is that probably the results of this referendum will be very questionable. In addition to that, there have been also several reports that Kherson region also wants to do a referendum. But in this case, the referendum is not about joining Russia, it is about being independent from Ukraine. And just as a reminder, this is exactly what happened with the same Luhansk and Donetsk regions. First of all, they just wanted to be independent from Ukraine, and now they're considering joining Russia. So I guess it's pretty obvious that right now Kherson wants to just be independent from Ukraine, but later they will once again want to just join Russia. Thank you so much for your attention, stay safe and see you tomorrow.